The woman in the faded sundress and worn sneakers didn't look like she belonged at Thunder Creek shooting range. Elena Vasquez stood at the counter, her soft voice barely audible over the constant crack of gunfire echoing from the indoor lanes. Her request was simple enough: lane rental and basic ammunition, but the way she held herself, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes downcast, made her appear more like someone who'd taken a wrong turn than a marksman ready for target practice. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The shooting range had become a weekend playground for the wealthy elite of Millbrook County, where successful businessmen and their trophy wives came to blow off steam and show off their expensive firearms. The facility itself catered to this clientele with its polished chrome fixtures, climate-controlled environment, and premium ammunition selection that cost more per round than most people spent on lunch. Behind the rental counter, Derek Hoffman sized up Elena with the practiced eye of someone who had worked in customer service long enough to categorize people within seconds. Her appearance screamed amateur, maybe a nervous first-timer whose boyfriend had dragged her along, or perhaps a suburban mom trying to prove something after watching too many action movies. Either way, she looked completely out of place among the tactical gear enthusiasts and weekend warriors who typically frequented Thunder Creek. Elena's appearance did nothing to command respect in a place where image mattered almost as much as accuracy. Her sundress, bought years ago from a discount store, had faded from countless washes. Her sneakers bore scuff marks that spoke of long walks rather than fashion choices. She carried a small canvas bag that looked more suitable for groceries than gun accessories, and her hands showed the calluses and worn patches of someone who worked with them for a living. The contrast couldn't have been sharper when Victoria Sterling swept through the entrance 10 minutes later. Everything about Victoria announced success and privilege, from her designer shooting jacket that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent, to the custom leather gun case she carried with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to having the best of everything. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled despite the humidity, and her manicured nails gleamed as she gestured for her entourage to follow. Victoria's group consisted of the usual suspects from Millbrook's social circle. There was Brandon Ashford, whose family owned half the commercial real estate in town, carrying enough tactical gear to outfit a small militia despite rarely hitting targets beyond 50 yards. Alongside him walked Cassandra Mills, whose husband's law firm represented most of the county's elite, and who treated the shooting range like an extension of the country club, where gossip flowed as freely as expensive wine. The dynamic shifted immediately when Victoria noticed Elena at the counter. It wasn't enough that Thunder Creek attracted a certain clientele. Victoria had appointed herself as the unofficial gatekeeper of who belonged and who didn't. She had been coming to the range for 3 years, ever since her divorce settlement had left her with both time and money to pursue expensive hobbies. Her shooting skills were adequate at best, but her ability to make others feel unwelcome was expertly honed. Elena's transaction with Derek was proceeding normally until Victoria's voice cut through the ambient noise like a blade. The comment about whether this was some kind of charity event wasn't directed at Elena specifically, but it was loud enough to ensure everyone in the vicinity could hear. The implication was clear: someone like Elena didn't belong in their exclusive environment. The target allocation system at Thunder Creek was first come, first served, but somehow Victoria always managed to secure the premium lanes with the best lighting and newest equipment. Today was no different as she steered her group toward lanes 7 through 10, the range's showcase area where visitors could observe shooters through floor-to-ceiling windows. Elena, meanwhile, was directed to lane 15, tucked away in the corner where the lighting was dimmer and the sound insulation slightly worn. As Elena made her way to her assigned lane, she passed Victoria's group setting up their equipment with elaborate ceremony. Brandon was explaining the modifications he'd made to his Arkansas 15 platform, using technical terms with the enthusiasm of someone who had learned them from YouTube videos rather than actual experience. Cassandra was photographing her new pistol from multiple angles, already planning the social media post that would generate likes from friends who confused expensive equipment with actual skill. The ritual of range preparation revealed much about each participant. Victoria's setup was meticulous to the point of obsession. Every piece of gear arranged with museum-like precision, her shooting stance practiced in front of mirrors until it looked professional even if the results didn't match the appearance. Her group's preparation involved more posing than practical readiness, with frequent pauses for photos and commentary about their equipment's superiority. Elena's approach was markedly different. She moved with quiet efficiency, checking her assigned lane's equipment with the systematic thoroughness of someone who understood that preparation wasn't about appearance, but about safety and effectiveness. Her examination of the target retrieval system was brief but complete, her adjustment of the bench rest subtle but precise. She handled the basic rental equipment with a familiarity that seemed oddly practiced for someone who looked so out of place. The ammunition selection revealed another layer of the social hierarchy at Thunder Creek. Victoria's group had purchased premium rounds that cost 4 times more than standard ammunition, not because they could shoot well enough to notice the difference, but because the expense itself was part of the experience. Elena had requested the most basic full-metal jacket rounds available, leading Derek to make another judgment about her probable skill level and financial situation. The first shots fired that afternoon came from Victoria's lane, accompanied by theatrical discussion about stance, breathing, and trigger control. Her group's shooting session resembled a performance more than practice, with each shooter taking turns while others offered commentary and encouragement. Their targets, set at a conservative 25 yards, showed groupings that were adequate for recreational shooting, but nothing that would impress experienced marksmen. Elena's lane remained quiet for the first 20 minutes as she methodically prepared her equipment and studied the range layout. Her silence wasn't from nervousness or uncertainty. It was the focused preparation of someone who approached shooting with genuine seriousness rather than social theater. When she finally loaded her first magazine, her movements carried a precision that would have been noticeable to anyone who understood firearms, but Victoria's group was too absorbed in their own performance to pay attention. The contrast in shooting styles became apparent as soon as Elena began firing. While Victoria's group maintained a steady stream of conversation between shots, Elena worked in complete silence, her breathing controlled and deliberate. Her first string of 5 shots was fired at a pace that suggested careful aim rather than rapid-fire enthusiasm, and even from a distance, the tight clustering of holes in her target was visible to anyone who cared to look. Victoria's attention was drawn to Elena's lane, not by admiration for her shooting, but by irritation at the lack of social interaction. In Victoria's worldview, the shooting range was as much about networking and displaying status as it was about marksmanship. Elena's solitary focus and obvious disregard for the social dynamics felt like a rejection of the established order, something Victoria took as a personal affront. The first direct confrontation began casually enough, with Victoria suggesting to her companions that they should check on the new girl to make sure she wasn't struggling with the equipment. The offer of help was delivered with the condescending tone of someone who assumed incompetence based on appearance alone. When Elena politely declined assistance, explaining that she was comfortable with the setup, Victoria's helpful facade began to slip. Brandon joined the interaction with observations about proper shooting technique, delivered with the confidence of someone who had read extensively about marksmanship without necessarily mastering it himself. His suggestions about Elena's stance and grip were based more on theoretical knowledge than practical experience, but they were offered with the assumption that his input would be welcomed and needed. Elena's responses remained courteous but minimal, a politeness that seemed to frustrate Victoria more than outright rudeness would have. There was something maddening about Elena's refusal to engage in the social hierarchy games that governed interactions at Thunder Creek. She neither sought approval nor seemed intimidated by the obvious wealth and status of Victoria's group, treating them with the same neutral politeness she might show to strangers in a grocery store. The shooting continued throughout the afternoon, with Victoria's group maintaining their social commentary, while Elena worked through her ammunition with methodical precision. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The difference in their approaches became increasingly apparent as their targets accumulated holes. Victoria's group produced the scattered patterns typical of recreational shooters, adequate for entertainment but nothing that demonstrated serious skill development. Elena's targets told a different story. Her groupings were tight enough to suggest either exceptional natural talent or substantial previous experience, with shot placement that remained consistent across multiple distances and target changes. When she moved her target back to 50 yards, then 75, her accuracy remained virtually unchanged, something that would have been remarkable for even experienced shooters. The tipping point came when Cassandra made a comment about certain people thinking they were too good to socialize with fellow shooters. The remark was clearly directed at Elena, whose continued focus on her own shooting was being interpreted as snobbery rather than concentration. Victoria seized on this opening to escalate the conflict, suggesting that perhaps Elena thought she was some kind of expert marksman who didn't need to interact with other range users. Elena's response was measured and calm, explaining that she simply preferred to concentrate while shooting and wasn't trying to be antisocial. This reasonable explanation somehow made Victoria more aggressive rather than less, as if Elena's refusal to be baited into an argument was itself a form of provocation. The situation was developing the kind of tension that could either dissipate naturally or explode into something more serious. The afternoon crowd at Thunder Creek had grown to include several other shooting groups, creating an audience for what was becoming an increasingly uncomfortable situation. Other range users were beginning to notice the dynamic between Victoria's vocal group and the quiet woman in lane 15, though most were reluctant to involve themselves in what appeared to be a social dispute rather than a safety issue. Elena's shooting session was nearing its planned conclusion when Victoria decided to make her move. The challenge, when it came, was delivered with the kind of casual cruelty that wealthy people sometimes mistake for wit. Victoria suggested that since Elena seemed so confident in her shooting abilities, perhaps she'd be willing to participate in a little friendly competition. The terms were simple enough, shooting at various distances to see who could achieve the better groupings. The proposed competition revealed Victoria's fundamental misunderstanding of Elena's character and abilities. Victoria assumed that Elena was either too inexperienced to recognize the challenge as potentially embarrassing, or too polite to decline what was framed as a friendly contest. The possibility that Elena might actually be a superior shooter never seriously entered Victoria's calculations, despite the evidence that had been accumulating on Elena's targets throughout the afternoon. Elena's initial decline of the competition was attributed by Victoria to nervousness rather than genuine disinterest. This interpretation allowed Victoria to press the issue with increasing persistence, suggesting that Elena's reluctance indicated awareness that her shooting wasn't as good as it appeared. The psychological pressure was designed to force Elena into a position where declining would seem like an admission of inadequacy. The crowd that had begun to gather around the developing situation included several experienced shooters who could read the quality of marksmanship displayed on various targets. These observers had noticed Elena's exceptional accuracy throughout the afternoon, but they remained silent as Victoria continued to escalate the confrontation. The social dynamics of Thunder Creek discouraged interference in disputes involving the facility's most prominent patrons. Brandon contributed to the pressure by questioning whether Elena was actually hitting her targets or if there might be some equipment malfunction causing false readings. The suggestion that her shooting success might be due to mechanical error rather than skill was designed to undermine Elena's confidence while providing Victoria with ammunition for further provocation. The comment revealed more about Brandon's inability to recognize genuine marksmanship than about any actual deficiency in Elena's performance. Elena's continued politeness in the face of increasing hostility demonstrated either remarkable self-control or complete confidence in her abilities. Her refusal to be drawn into argument or boastfulness suggested someone who had no need to prove themselves to strangers, yet her presence at the range indicated genuine interest in shooting rather than mere curiosity. The contradiction intrigued the few observers who were paying close attention to the developing drama. The challenge escalated when Victoria suggested that Elena's reluctance to compete indicated she had been lucky rather than skillful in her shooting. This accusation crossed a line from gentle mockery to direct insult, questioning Elena's integrity as well as her abilities. The comment was delivered with sufficient volume to ensure that most of the range's afternoon crowd could hear, transforming what had been a private confrontation into a public challenge. Elena's response to this escalation was to quietly pack her equipment, apparently preparing to leave rather than engage in further conflict. This retreat was immediately interpreted by Victoria as victory, confirming her assumption that Elena had been bluffing about her shooting abilities all along. The sense of triumph led Victoria to push even further, suggesting that Elena's departure proved she had been putting on an act to impress people. The range officer, who had been monitoring the situation from a distance, finally approached the developing conflict. Range safety required that disputes be resolved quickly before they could affect other shooters or escalate into more serious problems. However, the officer's intervention came in the form of asking Elena if there was a problem, rather than addressing Victoria's increasingly aggressive behavior. The implicit bias in this approach wasn't lost on Elena, though she chose not to comment on it. Elena's explanation to the range officer was simple and straightforward. She had completed her planned shooting session and was preparing to leave. There was no mention of Victoria's harassment or the pressure to participate in an unwanted competition. This dignified response to provocation only seemed to frustrate Victoria more, as if Elena's refusal to play the victim was somehow cheating. The moment that would define the entire afternoon came when Victoria made her final, fatal miscalculation. Instead of accepting Elena's graceful exit, she decided to make one last attempt to establish her dominance. The comment about certain people not being able to handle real competition was delivered with the casual cruelty of someone who had never faced serious consequences for their behavior. Elena stopped packing her equipment and turned to face Victoria with an expression that several observers later described as completely calm, yet somehow dangerous. When she spoke, her voice carried a quiet authority that had been completely absent during the earlier confrontation. Her acceptance of Victoria's challenge came with conditions that revealed both confidence and strategic thinking, a combination that should have warned Victoria that she had seriously misjudged her opponent. The terms Elena proposed were simple but telling. Rather than the amateur-level competition Victoria had suggested, Elena recommended a demonstration that would settle the question of skill definitively. The specific challenge she issued, splitting a bullet on a steel wedge at 100 yards, was so technically demanding that most recreational shooters wouldn't even attempt it. The fact that Elena suggested it indicated either supreme confidence or complete delusion. Victoria's acceptance of these modified terms revealed her fundamental ignorance about marksmanship. The bullet-splitting demonstration Elena had proposed was a feat that required not just exceptional accuracy but deep understanding of ballistics, ammunition characteristics, and environmental factors. It was the kind of shooting that separated true experts from recreational enthusiasts, yet Victoria agreed to witness it as if she were calling Elena's bluff in a poker game. The preparation for Elena's demonstration drew a crowd that included most of Thunder Creek's afternoon shooters. Word had spread quickly through the facility that something unusual was about to happen, and experienced marksmen were curious to see whether the quiet woman in the sundress could actually perform the feat she had proposed. The gathering audience created pressure for both participants, though Elena seemed remarkably unaffected by the attention. Elena's equipment selection for the demonstration revealed the first hint of her true background. Instead of using the basic rental rifle she had been assigned, she requested access to the range's precision equipment normally reserved for competitive shooters. Her familiarity with the advanced rifle's characteristics was immediately apparent to anyone who understood firearms, as she made adjustments with the confidence of someone who had extensive experience with similar weapons. The ammunition choice for the demonstration was equally revealing. Elena selected match-grade rounds that most recreational shooters would consider unnecessarily expensive and precise for normal range use. Her examination of each cartridge before loading showed the kind of attention to detail that separated serious marksmen from casual enthusiasts. The fact that she was willing to pay for premium ammunition for what Victoria still considered a publicity stunt indicated either genuine confidence or significant financial resources. The target setup for the bullet-splitting demonstration required special equipment that Thunder Creek normally used only for advanced training courses. The steel wedge had to be positioned with mathematical precision to ensure that a bullet striking its edge would split cleanly, rather than fragmenting unpredictably. Elena's involvement in positioning the target revealed knowledge of ballistics that surprised even the range's most experienced instructors. As Elena prepared for her demonstration shot, the crowd's attitude began to shift from skeptical entertainment to genuine interest. Her handling of the precision rifle showed familiarity that couldn't be faked, and her methodical preparation suggested someone who understood exactly what she was attempting. The casual confidence that had irritated Victoria earlier was now revealed as the quiet assurance of genuine expertise. The shooting position Elena assumed for her demonstration was textbook perfect, with every element of stance, grip, and sight alignment executed with precision that impressed the experienced shooters in the audience. Her breathing pattern was controlled and measured, and her trigger finger moved with the kind of deliberate pressure that indicated extensive training. The transformation from seemingly amateur recreational shooter to obvious expert was complete and undeniable. Victoria's growing unease was apparent to everyone except herself. The woman she had been mocking and challenging was clearly far more skilled than anyone had initially realized. Yet, Victoria's pride prevented her from gracefully withdrawing her challenge. The possibility that she was about to be dramatically outclassed by someone she had dismissed as inferior was becoming increasingly obvious to the gathering crowd. The moment of the demonstration shot was preceded by complete silence as Elena made her final adjustments and steadied her breathing. The technical difficulty of what she was attempting had sobered even the most skeptical observers, and everyone present understood that they were about to witness either an exceptional display of marksmanship or a spectacular failure. The pressure of performing under such scrutiny would have overwhelmed most recreational shooters. Elena's shot was fired with the kind of smooth precision that indicated complete confidence in the outcome. The sound of the bullet striking the steel wedge was followed immediately by the distinctive whistle of two fragments flying in different directions, confirming that the bullet had indeed split cleanly on the target's edge. The demonstration was so perfectly executed that it seemed almost anticlimactic, as if such extraordinary shooting was routine rather than remarkable. The silence that followed Elena's successful demonstration lasted several seconds as the audience processed what they had witnessed. Bullet splitting was the kind of feat that most shooters had heard about but never seen performed, requiring not just exceptional accuracy, but perfect understanding of ballistics and equipment. The fact that Elena had executed it on her first attempt indicated a level of skill that placed her far beyond recreational shooting. Victoria's reaction to Elena's demonstration revealed the complete collapse of her earlier confidence. The woman she had been mocking and challenging had just performed one of the most difficult feats in marksmanship with casual precision, making Victoria's own shooting abilities look amateur by comparison. The realization that she had been bullying someone vastly more skilled than herself was both humiliating and terrifying. The crowd's response to Elena's demonstration was immediate and dramatic. The experienced shooters present recognized the exceptional nature of what they had witnessed and responded with the kind of respect typically reserved for professional marksmen. Several approached Elena to ask about her background and training, suddenly eager to learn from someone whose abilities had been so dramatically revealed. Elena's behavior following her successful demonstration was as remarkable as the shooting itself. Instead of gloating or seeking acknowledgement, she simply began packing her equipment with the same quiet efficiency she had shown throughout the afternoon. Her response to congratulations was gracious but brief, and she showed no interest in capitalizing on her moment of triumph for social advantage. The transformation in how other range users treated Elena was immediate and complete. The woman who had been ignored or dismissed earlier in the afternoon was now the center of respectful attention, with experienced shooters seeking her opinions on equipment and technique. The social hierarchy that had excluded her was suddenly eager to include her, though Elena seemed largely indifferent to this change in status. Victoria's humiliation was compounded by the realization that her behavior throughout the afternoon had been witnessed by dozens of people who now understood exactly how wrong she had been about Elena's abilities. The woman she had mocked as an amateur had demonstrated skills that Victoria couldn't hope to match, even with extensive practice and expensive equipment. The reversal of status was complete and devastating. The range officer who had earlier seemed ready to side with Victoria now approached Elena with obvious respect, asking about her background and whether she might be interested in teaching advanced marksmanship courses at Thunder Creek. The facility's sudden eagerness to associate with Elena revealed how quickly perceptions could change when genuine ability was demonstrated so dramatically. As Elena prepared to leave Thunder Creek, the afternoon's events had completely reshuffled the social dynamics of the facility. The woman who had arrived as an apparent outsider was departing as someone whose skills commanded universal respect, while Victoria's status as the unofficial queen of the shooting range had been thoroughly undermined by her misjudgment and poor behavior. The story of Elena's demonstration would spread far beyond Thunder Creek, becoming the kind of legend that shooting ranges love to tell about exceptional marksmanship and the danger of judging people by their appearance. However, the woman at the center of the story had already disappeared into the afternoon, leaving behind only the memory of perfect shooting and perfect grace under pressure. The lesson of Elena's visit to Thunder Creek extended far beyond marksmanship, touching on themes of prejudice, assumption, and the danger of confusing appearance with ability. In a world where expensive equipment and social status often substituted for actual skill, Elena's quiet competence had provided a stark reminder that true expertise needed no external validation or expensive packaging. As the crowd gradually dispersed and normal shooting resumed at Thunder Creek, the afternoon's events had left an indelible impression on everyone present. The demonstration of bullet splitting would be remembered and retold, but more importantly, the lesson about not judging people by their appearance had been delivered with unforgettable impact. Victoria's friends had witnessed her complete humiliation and recognized that her status as the range's social leader had been permanently damaged by her treatment of Elena. The woman who had seemed so confident and superior earlier in the day now appeared small and petty in comparison to Elena's quiet dignity and extraordinary skill. The transformation was complete. The simple woman in the faded sundress had revealed herself to be anything but simple, while the wealthy, well-equipped group that had dominated the range's social scene had been exposed as amateurs playing at something they didn't truly understand. The bullet Elena had split had also split the illusions that governed Thunder Creek's social hierarchy, leaving behind a new understanding of what real skill looked like. The silence that followed Elena's bullet-splitting demonstration stretched like a held breath across Thunder Creek shooting range. Victoria Sterling stood frozen behind the observation glass, her perfectly manicured hands pressed against the surface as if trying to push away the reality of what she had just witnessed. The woman she had spent the afternoon mocking with casual cruelty had just performed one of the most challenging feats in precision shooting, as if it were a simple warm-up exercise. Derek Hoffman, the range employee who had initially dismissed Elena as another amateur, found himself staring at the steel wedge where two distinct impact marks showed exactly where the split bullet had struck after dividing. His experience working with recreational shooters had never prepared him for witnessing such extraordinary marksmanship from someone who looked like she had wandered in from a community college campus, rather than emerging from an elite training facility. The experienced shooters in the crowd began approaching Elena with questions that revealed their growing understanding of what they had witnessed. Marcus Chen, a retired police firearms instructor who had been quietly observing from Lane 12, was the first to voice what several others were thinking. The precision required for bullet splitting wasn't something that could be learned from YouTube videos or weekend hobby shooting. It required extensive training, exceptional natural ability, and access to high-level instruction that most civilian shooters never encountered. Elena's responses to the questions directed at her were polite, but remarkably uninformative. When asked about her training background, she mentioned learning from family members without elaborating on who those family members might have been or what their qualifications were. Her deflection of inquiries about competitive shooting experience was so smooth that it almost seemed rehearsed, as if she had long practice in avoiding discussions about her capabilities. The transformation in how Thunder Creek staff treated Elena was immediate and profound. Range Officer Patricia Wells, who had been prepared to side with Victoria in any dispute involving the facility's most prominent patrons, now approached Elena with obvious deference. The request for Elena to consider teaching advanced marksmanship courses was delivered with the kind of respect typically reserved for certified instructors, with impressive credentials and proven track records. Victoria's humiliation was compounded by the realization that her entire social circle had witnessed her spectacular misjudgment. Brandon Ashford, who had spent the afternoon offering unsolicited advice about shooting technique to someone who clearly understood firearms far better than he did, now avoided eye contact with Elena entirely. His earlier comments about proper stance and grip seemed laughably inadequate in light of what Elena had just demonstrated. Cassandra Mills found herself in the particularly uncomfortable position of having photographed Elena throughout the afternoon as part of the group's mockery campaign. The images on her phone now documented not Elena's supposed incompetence, but rather Cassandra's own inability to recognize genuine expertise when she encountered it. The social media posts she had been planning would now serve as evidence of her poor judgment rather than ammunition for online ridicule. The crowd that had gathered to witness Elena's demonstration began to disperse slowly, with many participants lingering to discuss what they had seen. The bullet-splitting feat had been impressive enough, but the context made it even more remarkable. Elena had performed under intense social pressure, using unfamiliar equipment, with a hostile audience expecting her to fail. The mental fortitude required for such shooting under those conditions indicated training that went far beyond recreational marksmanship. Elena's behavior following her demonstration continued to puzzle and impress the observers who remained. Instead of savoring her triumph or using the moment to establish social dominance, she simply continued packing her equipment with the same methodical efficiency she had displayed throughout the afternoon. Her indifference to the sudden attention and respect seemed genuine rather than calculated, as if external validation held no particular value for her. The conversation among the remaining shooters gradually shifted from discussing Elena's remarkable shooting to speculating about her background. The bullet-splitting demonstration had been performed with such casual confidence that it suggested regular practice with advanced techniques. Most civilian shooters who possessed such skills had acquired them through competitive shooting, military service, or law enforcement training. Yet Elena's appearance and demeanor didn't fit the typical profile of any of those backgrounds. Victoria's recovery from her initial shock took the form of desperate rationalization. She suggested to anyone who would listen that Elena's success might have been luck rather than skill, despite the mathematical improbability of accidentally achieving bullet splitting. Her attempts to minimize Elena's accomplishment became increasingly desperate as it became clear that the other observers understood exactly how impressive the demonstration had been. The staff at Thunder Creek found themselves facing an awkward situation as they tried to balance their treatment of Elena with their need to maintain relationships with wealthy, regular customers like Victoria. The facility's business model depended heavily on attracting affluent clients who could afford premium services and equipment rentals, yet Elena's display of superior skill had effectively humiliated one of their most prominent patrons. Derek's conversation with Elena about equipment rental revealed another layer of her mysterious background. Her familiarity with the precision rifle she had used for the demonstration extended beyond basic operation to understanding of advanced modifications and calibration procedures. When she mentioned having used similar weapon systems in the past, her casual reference to military-grade equipment raised questions about where and how she had gained such experience. The amateur shooters who had witnessed Elena's demonstration began approaching their own targets with new humility. The tight groupings that had seemed impressive earlier in the afternoon now appeared mediocre when compared to the precision Elena had displayed. Several participants quietly adjusted their target distances closer, recognizing that their earlier confidence in their shooting abilities had been based on limited perspective. Elena's interaction with Marcus Chen, the retired police instructor, provided the first significant clue about her background. His questions about her training were more specific and technically informed than the general inquiries from other shooters. When Elena mentioned learning from instructors who emphasized precision over volume of fire, Marcus nodded with understanding that suggested recognition of particular training philosophies or methodologies. The conversation between Elena and Marcus took place away from the main crowd, but their body language was observable to anyone paying attention. Marcus's deferential posture and occasional glances toward Elena's hands suggested he might have noticed details that others had missed. His experience training law enforcement officers had taught him to read signs of advanced weapons handling that civilian shooters might not recognize. Victoria's attempts to salvage her reputation became increasingly transparent and desperate. Her suggestions that Elena might have been a professional shooter hiding her background were delivered as accusations rather than genuine curiosity. The implication that Elena had somehow cheated by not revealing her true skill level showed how completely Victoria misunderstood both marksmanship culture and basic social courtesy. The transformation in Derek's attitude toward Elena was particularly striking because it occurred in front of multiple witnesses who had observed his earlier dismissive treatment. His newfound eagerness to accommodate Elena's equipment needs and provide access to advanced training facilities represented a complete reversal that highlighted how quickly respect could be gained through demonstrated competence. Elena's decline of Thunder Creek's offer to teach advanced courses was delivered with the same polite firmness she had shown throughout the afternoon's confrontations. Her explanation that she preferred to keep her shooting as a private activity was accepted without argument, though it left many questions unanswered about her background and future plans for her obviously exceptional skills. The cleanup process following Elena's demonstration revealed additional evidence of her shooting precision. The steel wedge used for bullet splitting showed impact marks that were perfectly centered on the splitting edge, with no secondary strikes or damage that would indicate adjustment shots. The single perfect execution suggested either extraordinary luck or the kind of confidence that came from extensive experience with similar demonstrations. Brandon's attempt to minimize Elena's accomplishment by suggesting that bullet splitting was more about luck than skill was quickly corrected by Marcus Chen, whose explanation of the ballistics involved made it clear that such precision required deep understanding of ammunition characteristics, environmental factors, and weapon systems. The mathematical precision required for success made accidental achievement essentially impossible. The social dynamic at Thunder Creek had shifted so dramatically that Victoria found herself increasingly isolated as other shooters gravitated toward Elena, despite her obvious reluctance to engage in extended conversation. The woman who had commanded the facility's social hierarchy through wealth and attitude was discovering that genuine expertise carried far more authority than expensive equipment and entitled behavior. Elena's preparation to leave the facility was interrupted by Patricia Wells, who approached with a request that revealed Thunder Creek's desperation to maintain a relationship with someone whose skills could enhance the facility's reputation. The offer of complimentary range time and equipment access was presented as appreciation for Elena's demonstration, but it clearly represented recognition of her value as a potential asset. The gathering crowd of observers began to thin as the afternoon wore on, but several experienced shooters remained to discuss the implications of what they had witnessed. The consensus among those with military or law enforcement backgrounds was that Elena's shooting indicated training that went far beyond civilian instruction. Her comfort with precision shooting under pressure suggested operational experience rather than purely competitive background. Victoria's final attempt to regain some measure of control over the situation took the form of questioning Elena's motives for visiting Thunder Creek in the first place. The suggestion that Elena had come specifically to humiliate recreational shooters revealed Victoria's inability to accept that she had simply misjudged someone whose skills far exceeded her own. The accusation was so transparently self-serving that it only further damaged Victoria's credibility. Elena's response to Victoria's continued hostility demonstrated the same calm professionalism she had maintained throughout the afternoon's confrontations. Her explanation that she had simply wanted to practice shooting in a controlled environment was delivered without defensiveness or irritation, making Victoria's aggressive questioning appear even more unreasonable to the remaining observers. The conversation between Elena and the facility's senior staff revealed that Thunder Creek's management was already considering how to capitalize on the afternoon's events. The possibility of featuring Elena's demonstration in marketing materials was raised delicately, but her firm decline made it clear that she had no interest in publicity or commercial exploitation of her skills. As the crowd continued to disperse, several shooters approached Elena privately to express appreciation for her gracious handling of what had clearly been an uncomfortable situation. The consensus among these observers was that Elena's restraint in the face of Victoria's provocation had been as impressive as her marksmanship, suggesting character development that matched her technical abilities. The cleanup of Elena's shooting lane revealed evidence of the consistent precision she had maintained throughout her entire session. Her target collection showed groupings that remained tight across multiple distances and ammunition types, with no degradation in accuracy that might suggest fatigue or loss of concentration. The sustained excellence of her shooting was as remarkable as the bullet-splitting demonstration itself. Marcus Chen's private conversation with Elena before her departure provided additional insights into her background, though she remained carefully vague about specific details. Her references to family members in military service were delivered casually, but Marcus's experience suggested that such training traditions often produced shooters with capabilities that exceeded those of professional marksmen who had learned their skills through formal instruction programs. The aftermath of Elena's demonstration began to ripple through Thunder Creek's regular clientele as news of the afternoon's events spread through social media and word of mouth. The story of the quiet woman who had outshot the facility's most prominent patrons was already becoming embellished in the telling, though the core facts were impressive enough to require no exaggeration. Victoria's friends began the delicate process of distancing themselves from her behavior without completely abandoning their social alliance. The afternoon's events had demonstrated that Victoria's judgment could be spectacularly wrong, creating doubt about her reliability as a social leader. The carefully maintained hierarchy that had governed their group dynamic was suddenly unstable. Elena's departure from Thunder Creek was observed by most of the afternoon's participants, who had gathered to witness whether she would attempt to capitalize on her demonstration or simply disappear as quietly as she had arrived. Her choice to leave without fanfare or additional drama was consistent with the dignified restraint she had shown throughout the confrontation. The conversation among the remaining shooters after Elena's departure focused on speculation about her background and the likelihood of her returning to Thunder Creek. The facility's management was clearly hoping for additional visits that might enhance their reputation, while the regular patrons were divided between admiration for Elena's skills and discomfort with having their own abilities so thoroughly overshadowed. Derek's discussion with his colleagues about Elena's visit revealed that Thunder Creek had never hosted a shooter with such obvious advanced capabilities. The facility was equipped to handle competitive marksmen and serious enthusiasts, but Elena's demonstration had been at a level typically associated with professional exhibitions rather than casual range visits. The impact of the afternoon's events on Thunder Creek's social dynamics became apparent in the changed behavior of the facility's regular patrons. The casual arrogance that had characterized interactions among the affluent clientele was noticeably subdued, as if Elena's demonstration had reminded everyone that expensive equipment could not substitute for genuine skill and training. Victoria's attempt to rally support from her social circle met with polite but lukewarm response from friends who had witnessed her humiliation and recognized that association with her misjudgment could damage their own reputations. The solidarity that had supported her dominance of Thunder Creek's social hierarchy was suddenly questionable when her judgment had been so publicly proven wrong. The facility's staff found themselves in the position of having to decide how to handle future interactions with both Elena and Victoria should they return to Thunder Creek. The desire to maintain relationships with wealthy regular customers had to be balanced against recognition that Elena's skills and character made her the kind of patron that enhanced rather than diminished the facility's reputation. As the afternoon sun began to set and Thunder Creek's normal closing procedures commenced, the impact of Elena's visit was still being processed by everyone who had witnessed her demonstration. The story would undoubtedly spread beyond the facility's walls, but for those who had been present, the experience had provided lessons that extended far beyond marksmanship technique. The transformation of perceptions that had occurred during Elena's visit represented more than just recognition of superior shooting skills. Her gracious behavior under pressure, professional handling of confrontation, and genuine humility despite obvious expertise had provided a masterclass in character that impressed the observers as much as her marksmanship abilities. Elena's mysterious background and uncertain future plans left Thunder Creek's community with questions that would fuel speculation for weeks to come. The woman who had arrived as an apparent amateur and revealed herself as an expert marksman had departed, leaving behind only the memory of perfect shooting and perfect grace under pressure. The lesson that expensive equipment and social status could not substitute for genuine skill and character had been delivered with such dramatic impact that it would be remembered long after the details of Elena's demonstration had faded. Thunder Creek's carefully maintained social hierarchy had been permanently altered by the afternoon's events. As the facility closed for the day, the staff and remaining patrons were left to contemplate how dramatically their understanding of marksmanship, social dynamics, and personal character had been challenged by the visit of one quiet woman who had asked for nothing more than the opportunity to practice her shooting in peace. The story of Elena's visit to Thunder Creek would become part of the facility's legend, but for those who had witnessed it firsthand, the experience had provided insights into the danger of judging people by their appearance and the importance of recognizing genuine expertise wherever it might be found. The morning after Elena's demonstration at Thunder Creek brought an unexpected visitor to the facility. Colonel James Patterson, dressed in civilian clothes but carrying himself with unmistakable military bearing, arrived 30 minutes before the range's official opening hours. His credentials as a Marine Corps firearms instructor granted him immediate access to speak with facility management about the previous day's events. Patricia Wells found herself facing questions she hadn't anticipated when she arrived for her morning shift. Colonel Patterson's inquiry about Elena Vasquez was delivered with the kind of professional courtesy that somehow managed to convey both authority and urgency. His request to review security footage from the previous afternoon's shooting sessions was accompanied by identification that made it clear this wasn't a casual visit. The security footage revealed details that had been missed by most observers during Elena's demonstration. Colonel Patterson's trained eye caught subtle elements of her shooting technique that confirmed suspicions he had developed after receiving phone calls from concerned military contacts. Elena's stance, breathing pattern, and trigger control weren't just excellent. They were textbook examples of advanced military marksmanship training. Derek Hoffman arrived for his shift to find Colonel Patterson and Patricia Wells reviewing multiple camera angles of Elena's bullet-splitting demonstration. The precision of Elena's shot placement became even more impressive when viewed from different perspectives. showing that she had compensated perfectly for wind conditions and equipment variables that most recreational shooters would never even consider. Colonel Patterson's explanation of Elena's background began with a simple statement that transformed everyone's understanding of the previous day's events. Elena Vasquez wasn't just an exceptional civilian marksman. She was former Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez, United States Army Special Operations, recently returned from her third deployment in Afghanistan, where she had served as a designated marksman and training instructor for indigenous forces. The revelation that Elena was a decorated veteran with multiple combat tours explained not just her extraordinary shooting skills, but also her calm behavior under pressure and professional response to Victoria's harassment. Colonel Patterson's description of Elena's service record included details that made Thunder Creek staff realize they had witnessed something far more significant than a recreational shooter demonstrating advanced technique. Elena's military specialization had been precision shooting and marksmanship instruction, with additional training in psychological operations and cross-cultural communication. Her deployment experiences included training Afghan National Army units in advanced rifle techniques, conducting long-range reconnaissance missions, and providing overwatch for special operations teams in hostile territory. The Bronze Star and Purple Heart citations that Colonel Patterson shared with facility management painted a picture of service that went far beyond routine military duties. Elena had been wounded while providing covering fire for a medical evacuation, continuing to engage enemy targets despite shrapnel injuries that had nearly cost her the use of her left arm. Her recovery and return to active duty had been followed by assignment to instructor positions, where she had trained hundreds of soldiers in advanced marksmanship techniques. Colonel Patterson's visit wasn't purely informational. He was conducting what he described as a wellness check on a veteran who had been struggling with civilian reintegration. Elena's choice to practice shooting at Thunder Creek had been part of her therapeutic routine, providing stress relief and maintaining skills that had defined her identity for over a decade of military service. The context provided by Colonel Patterson's explanation made Victoria's treatment of Elena seem not just rude, but deeply inappropriate. The woman who had been mocked for her appearance and challenged to prove her shooting abilities was someone who had risked her life repeatedly in service to her country, demonstrating courage and skill under conditions that none of Thunder Creek's recreational shooters could imagine. Elena's reluctance to discuss her background suddenly made perfect sense to facility management. Many combat veterans struggled with civilian assumptions about their experiences, and Elena's preference for anonymity was a common coping mechanism for soldiers trying to establish normal lives after military service. Her desire to simply practice shooting without explaining her credentials was entirely understandable given the complexity of veteran reintegration. The timing of Colonel Patterson's visit wasn't coincidental. He had been contacted by Marcus Chen, whose law enforcement background had included working with military veterans and who had recognized signs of Elena's service background. Marcus's concern about Elena's treatment at Thunder Creek had prompted him to reach out to contacts in the veteran community who could provide appropriate support. Colonel Patterson's description of Elena's current situation revealed the challenges facing many returning veterans. Despite her exceptional qualifications and proven leadership abilities, Elena had been struggling to find employment that utilized her skills without requiring her to discuss traumatic experiences that she preferred to keep private. Her transition to civilian life had been complicated by the disconnect between her military achievements and civilian perceptions of her capabilities. The revelation about Elena's background spread quickly through Thunder Creek's regular clientele, as staff members shared appropriate details with concerned shooters who had witnessed the previous day's events. The response from the facility's community was immediate and overwhelmingly supportive, with several patrons expressing regret about their failure to recognize Elena's service background. Brandon Ashford's reaction to learning about Elena's military service was particularly profound, as his grandfather had been a World War II veteran whose stories about combat had instilled deep respect for military service. His embarrassment about offering shooting advice to someone with Elena's qualifications was compounded by guilt about his passive participation in Victoria's harassment campaign. Cassandra Mills found herself deleting the photos she had taken of Elena the previous day, recognizing that her intended mockery of a veteran's appearance was not just cruel, but potentially harmful to someone dealing with reintegration challenges. Her decision to research veteran support organizations and make substantial donations was motivated by genuine remorse rather than public relations concerns. The transformation in Thunder Creek's atmosphere was evident when Elena returned 3 days later for another practice session. The facility's staff had prepared for her visit by ensuring that her preferred equipment was available and that other shooters were aware of her veteran status without making her service the focus of unwanted attention. Elena's arrival was met with quiet respect rather than the indifference or hostility she had experienced during her previous visit. Several veterans who frequented Thunder Creek had made a point of being present to offer support if needed, creating an environment where Elena's service background was acknowledged without being exploitative or overwhelming. The change in other patrons' behavior toward Elena was immediate and profound. The casual dismissal based on her appearance had been replaced by genuine interest in her perspective on marksmanship technique and equipment selection. However, Elena's responses remained measured and professional, suggesting that trust would need to be rebuilt gradually after the previous experience. Victoria's return to Thunder Creek later that week created an atmosphere of tension that the facility's management had been dreading. Her initial attempt to continue her normal routine was complicated by the obvious change in how other patrons viewed her behavior and judgment. The woman who had commanded social respect through wealth and attitude found herself increasingly isolated. The confrontation between Victoria and Elena's growing circle of supporters came when Victoria made disparaging comments about veterans who couldn't handle civilian life without special treatment. The response from other shooters was swift and unforgiving, with several patrons making it clear that such attitudes were unwelcome at Thunder Creek. Marcus Chen's intervention in the developing conflict was decisive and professional. His explanation to Victoria about the challenges facing returning veterans was delivered with the authority of someone who had worked extensively with military personnel. His suggestion that Victoria's continued presence at Thunder Creek might be contingent on demonstrating appropriate respect for all patrons was understood by facility management as a serious recommendation. Elena's response to the continuing drama surrounding her presence at Thunder Creek was characteristically measured and dignified. Her request for a private meeting with facility management indicated her willingness to address the situation directly rather than allowing it to continue affecting other patrons' experiences. The private conversation between Elena and Thunder Creek's senior staff revealed the depth of thought she had given to the situation. Her primary concern wasn't her own treatment, but the impact that ongoing conflict might have on other veterans who used the facility for therapeutic shooting. Her suggestion for establishing veteran-specific programs showed her continued commitment to service despite her difficult reintegration experience. Elena's proposal for a veteran support program at Thunder Creek included elements that demonstrated her understanding of both military culture and civilian business needs. The program would provide discounted range time for veterans, specialized training courses that addressed combat-related shooting techniques, and peer support groups that could help with reintegration challenges. The facility's enthusiastic acceptance of Elena's program proposal was motivated by both genuine desire to support veterans and recognition of the positive publicity that such an initiative would generate. Elena's willingness to serve as the program coordinator represented a significant commitment to helping other veterans avoid the isolation and misunderstanding she had experienced. The development of Thunder Creek's veteran support program attracted attention from the broader community, including local businesses interested in supporting military families and veteran organizations seeking partnerships with civilian facilities. Elena's role as program coordinator provided her with purpose and recognition that eased her transition to civilian life while utilizing her military experience constructively. Victoria's gradual recognition of her mistakes began with private conversations with friends who had witnessed her behavior toward Elena. The unanimous feedback that her treatment of a combat veteran had been inappropriate and embarrassing prompted genuine self-reflection about her attitudes and assumptions about people different from herself. The transformation in Victoria's perspective accelerated when she learned specific details about Elena's military service from Colonel Patterson, who had agreed to speak with community members interested in understanding veteran experiences. Victoria's realization that she had mocked someone who had risked her life in service to the country was genuinely traumatic for someone who considered herself patriotic. Victoria's decision to approach Elena privately to apologize was motivated by sincere remorse rather than social pressure. The conversation between the two women was difficult but necessary, allowing Victoria to express genuine regret, while Elena demonstrated the grace and professionalism that had characterized her response to all the challenges she had faced at Thunder Creek. Elena's acceptance of Victoria's apology was conditional on Victoria's commitment to supporting the veteran program and educating herself about military service and reintegration challenges. The requirements Elena established weren't punitive but rather constructive, focusing on positive actions that could benefit other veterans, rather than simply punishing Victoria for her previous behavior. The public announcement of Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program generated significant media attention, with Elena's story becoming a focal point for discussions about veteran reintegration and civilian support for military families. However, Elena's insistence on privacy meant that her personal details remained confidential, while her program work received appropriate recognition. The success of Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program attracted veterans from throughout the region, creating a community that provided both practical assistance and social support for former military personnel struggling with civilian transition. Elena's leadership of the program utilized her military experience while providing her with a sense of purpose and belonging that had been missing since her discharge. The program's impact extended beyond Thunder Creek, as other shooting facilities began implementing similar initiatives based on Elena's model. The network of veteran-friendly ranges that developed created opportunities for former military personnel to maintain their skills while building civilian relationships in environments that understood and respected their service backgrounds. Elena's transformation from isolated veteran to community leader was gradual, but profound. Her initial reluctance to discuss her military service gave way to willingness to share experiences when doing so could help other veterans or educate civilian supporters. Her role as program coordinator provided structure and purpose, while allowing her to control how much of her personal story she chose to reveal. The relationship between Elena and the Thunder Creek community evolved from mutual suspicion to genuine partnership, as the Veteran Support Program demonstrated its value to both military and civilian participants. The facility's business actually improved as the program attracted new customers and generated positive publicity that enhanced Thunder Creek's reputation throughout the region. Victoria's involvement in the Veteran Support Program began with financial contributions but gradually expanded to include volunteer work and advocacy for veteran issues. Her transformation from antagonist to ally was perhaps the most dramatic change resulting from Elena's presence at Thunder Creek, demonstrating the potential for growth and redemption when people were willing to acknowledge their mistakes. The educational component of Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program included presentations about military service and reintegration challenges that helped civilian patrons understand the experiences of veteran shooters. Elena's willingness to share general information about military culture while maintaining privacy about her personal experiences struck an effective balance between education and personal boundaries. The mentorship relationships that developed within the Veteran Support Program provided Elena with connections to other former military personnel who understood her experiences while offering her opportunities to help newer veterans navigate civilian transition. The sense of continued service and mission that these relationships provided was crucial to Elena's successful reintegration. The recognition that Elena received for her work with the Veteran Support Program included awards from veteran organizations and civilian groups that appreciated her efforts to bridge military and civilian communities. However, Elena's focus remained on the practical work of helping other veterans rather than seeking personal recognition or advancement. The long-term impact of Elena's presence at Thunder Creek extended far beyond the immediate community, as her Veteran Support Program model was adopted by facilities throughout the state and eventually gained national attention. The initiative that had begun as a response to one veteran's difficult experience had grown into a movement that helped thousands of former military personnel find community and purpose in civilian life. Elena's personal journey from combat veteran struggling with reintegration to community leader and advocate represented the kind of transformation that successful veteran support programs were designed to facilitate. Her story became an example of how civilian communities could support military families while benefiting from the skills and perspectives that veterans brought to their new environments. The relationship between Elena and Thunder Creek evolved into a genuine partnership that demonstrated the potential for mutual benefit when civilian organizations made genuine commitments to supporting veteran communities. Elena's continued involvement with the facility provided her with stability and purpose, while the Veteran Support Program enhanced Thunder Creek's reputation and customer base. The network of relationships that Elena built through her work at Thunder Creek extended throughout the veteran community and into civilian organizations interested in supporting military families. Her role as a bridge between military and civilian cultures provided her with a sense of mission that honored her service, while contributing to her successful transition to civilian life. The transformation of Thunder Creek from a facility where a veteran had been mocked and challenged into a model for veteran support programs represented the kind of positive change that could occur when communities recognize their responsibilities to former military personnel. Elena's leadership in creating this transformation demonstrated the potential for veterans to contribute positively to civilian communities when given appropriate support and recognition. The story of Elena's experience at Thunder Creek became a case study in veteran reintegration programs and civilian community responsibility, illustrating both the challenges facing returning military personnel and the potential for positive outcomes when civilians made genuine efforts to understand and support veteran needs. The program that resulted from her difficult initial experience had helped hundreds of veterans while educating thousands of civilians about military service and reintegration challenges. Elena's legacy at Thunder Creek was measured not just in the success of the veteran support program she had created, but in the transformation of attitudes and understanding that her presence had generated throughout the facility's community. The woman who had arrived as an unwelcome outsider had become an integral part of Thunder Creek's identity and mission. The ongoing success of Thunder Creek's veteran support program served as a testament to Elena's vision and leadership, while providing a model that other communities could adapt to meet their own veteran population's needs. The initiative that had begun as a response to one veteran's mistreatment had evolved into a comprehensive support system that addressed multiple aspects of military to civilian transition. As Elena reflected on her journey from isolated veteran to community leader, she recognized that her difficult initial experience at Thunder Creek had ultimately led to opportunities for service and purpose that she might never have discovered otherwise. The bullet she had split during her demonstration had also split open possibilities for connection and contribution that had transformed not just her own life, but the lives of countless other veterans who had benefited from the programs she had created. The transformation was complete, but the work continued, as Elena remained committed to expanding and improving veteran support services while maintaining the high standards of professionalism and dignity that had characterized her response to every challenge she had faced. The simple woman who had been insulted at a firing range had become a leader whose impact would be felt by veteran communities for years to come. The success of Thunder Creek's veteran support program began attracting attention from unexpected quarters 6 months after Elena's initial visit. Doctors Sarah Martinez, a psychiatrist specializing in post-traumatic stress disorder and veteran mental health, had heard about the program through professional networks and requested permission to conduct research on its effectiveness as a therapeutic intervention for combat veterans struggling with reintegration. Elena's initial reaction to the research proposal was cautious, reflecting her ongoing preference for privacy and her concern about exploiting veteran experiences for academic purposes. However, Dr. Martinez's respectful approach and genuine commitment to improving veteran care eventually convinced Elena that the research could benefit other veterans facing similar challenges throughout the country. The preliminary research findings were remarkable enough to attract funding from the Department of Veterans Affairs for a comprehensive study of recreational shooting as therapy for combat-related stress disorders. Elena found herself in the unexpected position of consulting with federal agencies about program design and implementation, utilizing her military experience in an entirely new context. The expansion of Thunder Creek's veteran support program to accommodate the research study required significant facility upgrades and staff training. Elena's role evolved from program coordinator to program director, with responsibilities that included training civilian staff to work effectively with veteran populations and developing protocols that balanced therapeutic goals with safety requirements. Victoria's involvement in the program had deepened considerably since her initial apology to Elena. Her financial contributions had funded much of the facility's expansion, but more importantly, her personal transformation had made her an effective advocate for veteran issues within Millbrook County's affluent social circles. Her ability to influence wealthy donors had generated support that allowed the program to expand far beyond its original scope. The relationship between Elena and Victoria had evolved into something approaching genuine friendship, though it remained professional in nature. Victoria's respect for Elena's expertise and Elena's acknowledgement of Victoria's sincere efforts to make amends had created a working partnership that neither woman had anticipated when their confrontation first occurred. The media attention surrounding Thunder Creek's veteran support program had been carefully managed to protect participant privacy while highlighting the program's benefits. Elena's insistence on anonymity for program participants had been respected, But her own story had become a powerful illustration of both veteran resilience and community responsibility. The documentary crew that arrived to film Thunder Creek's program faced the challenge of telling a compelling story while respecting Elena's boundaries about personal disclosure. The resulting film focused on the program's development and impact rather than individual stories, though Elena's leadership role made her a central figure in the narrative. Elena's comfort level with public speaking had improved dramatically through her program coordination responsibilities, though she remained selective about media appearances and public events. Her presentations at veteran service organization conferences were particularly well received because they combined practical program information with authentic military perspective. The networking opportunities that arose from Elena's program work had connected her with veteran advocates and military mental health professionals throughout the region. These relationships provided both personal support for Elena's own ongoing reintegration and professional development opportunities that utilized her unique combination of military experience and civilian program management skills. The psychological impact of Elena's transformation from isolated veteran to recognized community leader was profound and ongoing. The sense of purpose and mission that her program work provided had addressed many of the identity and belonging issues that had complicated her initial civilian transition. Her continued service to the veteran community had allowed her to maintain connection to military culture while building civilian relationships. The training courses that Elena developed for Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program combined military precision with therapeutic principles, creating educational experiences that served both veteran participants and civilian staff. Her ability to translate military concepts into civilian language made her an effective bridge between cultures that often struggled to understand each other. The peer support networks that emerged from Thunder Creek's veteran program extended far beyond the facility itself, creating lasting relationships among participants that provided ongoing mutual assistance with reintegration challenges. Elena's role in facilitating these connections demonstrated her understanding that successful veteran transition required community support rather than individual effort alone. The academic recognition that Elena's work was beginning to receive included invitations to speak at universities and military colleges about veteran reintegration and civilian community responsibility. These opportunities represented significant personal growth for someone who had initially preferred complete anonymity, though Elena remained selective about which invitations she accepted. The policy implications of Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program's success were becoming apparent as state and federal agencies examined the model for potential broader implementation. Elena's input was sought by legislative committees considering veteran affairs funding and program design, giving her influence over policies that could affect thousands of former military personnel. The personal relationships that Elena had developed through her program work included romantic possibilities that she was gradually becoming willing to explore. Her increased confidence and sense of stability had made her more open to civilian relationships, though she remained cautious about partners who could understand and respect her military background. The professional development opportunities that had emerged from Elena's program success included job offers from veteran service organizations, federal agencies, and academic institutions. However, her commitment to Thunder Creek's program and the veteran community it served made her reluctant to consider positions that would require relocating or abandoning the work she had built. The mentorship relationships that Elena maintained with newer program participants provided her with ongoing connection to the veteran experience while allowing her to share the wisdom gained from her own reintegration journey. These relationships reminded her of the continued importance of peer support and the responsibility that successful veterans had to help those still struggling with transition. The community partnerships that had developed around Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program included relationships with local businesses, educational institutions, and service organizations that provided comprehensive support for veteran families. Elena's role in coordinating these partnerships required diplomatic skills and community knowledge that she had developed through her program work. The financial sustainability of Thunder Creek's Veteran Support Program had been secured through a combination of grants, donations, and fee-for-service arrangements, with veteran organizations seeking to replicate the model. Elena's business acumen, developed through necessity during program administration, had proven surprisingly sophisticated for someone with primarily military background. The international attention that Thunder Creek's program was beginning to receive included inquiries from allied nations interested in adapting the model for their own veteran populations. Elena's correspondence with foreign military and veteran organizations provided her with global perspective on veteran issues, while positioning her as an expert in her field. The research publications that resulted from Dr. Martinez's study of Thunder Creek's program included Elena as a co-author, marking her emergence as a recognized authority on veteran reintegration through recreational shooting programs. The academic credentials that these publications provided opened additional opportunities for Elena to influence veteran policy and program development. The speaking engagements that Elena began accepting required her to travel throughout the country, sharing Thunder Creek's model with communities interested in developing similar programs. These experiences provided her with national recognition while contributing to a growing movement to improve civilian support for veteran reintegration. The awards and recognition that Elena received for her program work included honors from veteran service organizations, civilian community groups, and government agencies. While she remained modest about personal recognition, Elena understood that these honors brought attention and credibility to veteran issues and program development efforts. The expansion of Thunder Creek's veteran support program to include family services reflected Elena's understanding that veteran reintegration affected entire families rather than just individual service members. The family counseling, spouse support groups, and children's programs that were added addressed the broader impact of military service on veteran households. The corporate partnerships that Elena developed for Thunder Creek's program included relationships with defense contractors, veteran-owned businesses, and civilian companies interested in hiring former military personnel. These partnerships provided employment opportunities for program participants while demonstrating the economic value that veterans brought to civilian organizations. The legislative testimony that Elena was asked to provide about veteran reintegration and community support programs gave her direct influence over policy development at state and federal levels. Her ability to speak from both personal experience and program administration perspective made her testimony particularly compelling to lawmakers considering veteran affairs funding. The book contract that Elena eventually signed to document Thunder Creek's program development and her own reintegration journey represented a significant step in her willingness to share personal experiences for the benefit of other veterans. The writing process required her to reflect deeply on her transformation while maintaining the dignity and privacy that had characterized her approach to public service. The television appearances that Elena began making to promote veteran awareness and program development marked her complete transformation from someone who preferred anonymity to a recognized advocate willing to use media attention to benefit veteran communities. Her comfort with public speaking and media interviews demonstrated remarkable personal growth while serving important advocacy purposes. The advisory board positions that Elena accepted with veteran service organizations and academic institutions provided her with formal roles in shaping veteran support policies and programs. These positions recognized her expertise while giving her platforms to influence the broader veteran community and civilian understanding of military service. The consulting work that Elena began providing to communities interested in developing veteran support programs created additional income while spreading Thunder Creek's model to new locations. Her consulting services were in high demand as communities recognized the benefits of peer-designed and veteran-led support programs. The university courses that Elena was invited to teach about veteran affairs and community development represented the ultimate validation of her transformation from combat veteran to recognized expert. Her academic appointments, though part-time to allow continued work at Thunder Creek, provided her with opportunities to influence the next generation of veteran advocates and community leaders. The international conferences where Elena presented Thunder Creek's program model brought global recognition to her work while contributing to international understanding of veteran reintegration challenges. Her presentations to military and civilian audiences in allied nations demonstrated the universal nature of veteran transition issues and the potential for community-based solutions. The research collaborations that Elena developed with universities and think tanks studying veteran issues positioned her as a bridge between academic research and practical program implementation. Her unique perspective as both program participant and program administrator made her a valuable partner for researchers seeking to understand effective veteran support interventions. The policy recommendations that Elena developed based on Thunder Creek's program experience were incorporated into state and federal guidelines for veteran support program development. Her influence on policy creation demonstrated how individual veteran experiences could be transformed into systemic improvements for entire veteran populations. The networking organization that Elena helped establish for veteran program administrators created a professional association that shared best practices, coordinated advocacy efforts, and provided mutual support for veterans working in community development roles. The organization's success reflected the growing recognition of veteran expertise in addressing veteran issues. The foundation that Elena established to support veteran reintegration programs provided funding and technical assistance to communities developing similar initiatives. The foundation's endowment, built through corporate partnerships and individual donations, ensured long-term sustainability for veteran support efforts, while honoring Elena's commitment to peer support and community-based solutions. The legacy that Elena was building through her work at Thunder Creek and beyond demonstrated the potential for individual transformation to create systemic change. Her journey from isolated veterans struggling with reintegration to recognized leader in veteran affairs illustrated both the challenges facing former military personnel and the possibilities that existed when communities made genuine commitments to supporting veteran success. The impact measurement systems that Elena developed for Thunder Creek's program provided quantitative evidence of the program's effectiveness while respecting participant privacy and dignity. The data collection and analysis protocols she created became models for other veteran support programs seeking to demonstrate their value to funders and policymakers. The training materials that Elena produced for civilian organizations working with veterans combined practical guidance with cultural education, helping non-military personnel understand and effectively support veteran populations. These resources filled a critical gap in civilian understanding of military culture and veteran needs. The mentorship program that Elena expanded beyond Thunder Creek connected veteran program participants with successful civilian mentors, while also pairing experienced veterans with those newer to civilian life. The program's success demonstrated the value of both peer support and civilian integration in successful veteran reintegration efforts. The annual conference that Elena organized brought together veteran support programs from throughout the region, creating opportunities for program sharing, professional development, and advocacy coordination. The conference became a significant event in the veteran support community while providing Elena with a platform to influence program development on a regional scale. The transformation of Elena's life and Thunder Creek's community represented more than individual success or organizational change. It demonstrated the potential for understanding, respect, and genuine commitment to overcome prejudice and create opportunities for mutual benefit. Elena's journey from dismissed outsider to respected leader illustrated the power of character, competence, and grace under pressure to transform not just individual lives but entire communities. The woman who had been insulted at a firing range had become a leader whose influence extended far beyond Thunder Creek's walls, creating lasting change that would benefit veteran communities for generations to come. Her story served as both inspiration and instruction for veterans facing similar challenges and communities, seeking to better support former military personnel in their transition to civilian life. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.